All right, let's go to phone calls.
Okay.
Dan on the Democratic line in California. You're on the air with Scott Garrett.
Hey, personally, I think that the problem that's going on in the United States right now in terms of financial companies is kind of a raid on the treasury of the corporation by board members, higher executives, where everybody basically pays each other exorbitant amounts of money, and the stockholder ends up holding the liabilities of the corporation without reaping many dividends or asset appreciation. Greta, can I read something from the Clean Water Act regarding the oil spill?
You know what, Dan? I'm gonna stop you there. Unfortunately, I want to stick to the topic of financial regulations because we spent the first hour and a half this morning on the oil spill. Congressman?
Sure. I knew oil was going to be the subject du jour today, but Dan raises a great point as far as the quandary that you have in certain situations to say, is it too close of a relationship sometimes with the CEOs, the executives, and the board of directors in certain corporations? And it certainly does appear that way. And certainly when you talk to certain people on the inside in Wall Street, they'll say there is just as Dan was sort of alluding to, this overly cozy, familiar relationship there. And that's why I think it is appropriate that stockholders be in a position to, they should be able to look at these things and see, am I, as an investor, getting the best return on my investment in these corporations? So today, Wednesday, we will be looking at corporate governance as part of reform, and it probably is an area that we haven't spent a lot of time on in the past, but we'll be doing a little bit today on it.
Do you think that the conferees in general could agree on those issues, corporate governance, shareholder rights?
Yeah.
Will executive pay come up?
Executive compensation will go up. You have to be careful on these things when you deal with it. The best people to be making those decisions is in the private sector, whether it's on the compensations committee or the owners of the company and like that, make those decisions. Certainly it should not be, as I look out the window over here, which is the Capitol right behind us, it certainly should not be Washington bureaucrats or the like making these decisions. Government should not be in the role of dictating to you or me or Dan how much money he should be making and the like.
Does the House or Senate legislation
they would
address?
They would like to do that. The Democrats, thanks, would like to have more power by the government to begin to set salaries and set compensation packages, which is not the way to go.
All right. Forbes Road, Pennsylvania. Eric, Republican line. You're next.
Hi. It seems that all roads lead back to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and this debacle. And most people don't know that Franklin Raines received $90 million as a bonus for cooking the books at these institutions. That Barney Frank and Chris Dodd, all those guys should be prosecuted criminally if we were a fair and just system. But I just want to know, what has been done to keep this mismanagement from happening again.
There you go. Short answer, absolutely nothing. And that's really the problem here in this bill is when you look at all the money, your opening question about and the comment about the $700 billion or $300 billion as far as whether it was loans or bailouts. Well, if you look at all the money that has been spent by Congress in the bailouts, or whatever you want to call them, they will pale in comparison to the amount of money that the taxpayers will be on the hook for what Eric was talking about for the GSEs, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Right now, that number looks set to be around $400 billion over the next 10 years, and it could go even much higher than that. And the real problem with the bill that we're dealing with right now, both the House version and the Senate version, there is zero in that bill to deal with the GSEs, to try to reform them, to try to fix them, to try to rein that number in. We just had a vote on this, as you may recall, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Or last week, dealing with trying to at least start that process, save $30 billion. The Democrats all voted no. Republicans voted yes. So we have to, Eric is absolutely right on this. We have to do something to rein them in. Democrats are not touching this issue.
All right, James in Beckley, West Virginia on the independent line.
Hello. It's my first time calling your show.
Welcome.
Hey, James.
The only question I have to ask is, when the corporate bailouts were given out, was it a year ago, I guess, a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, whatever.
Right.
When those bailouts were given out, corporate America on Wall Street, they gave they gave all the banks their money or whatever, and they continue to give their incentives to their CEOs. And I know they said that they were not going to allow that to happen. Obama, that was his big thing when he was running for president. He wasn't going to allow it to happen, but it still happens today.
All right, and
Yeah.
should that be addressed?
It should be. I mean, I make a distinction between the government setting salaries for you or me or for James in the normal course of things. The government should not be doing that because that's not the way the private market and the free market system works. But when the government gets involved, as it did in this situation, and starts giving bailouts or preferred loans to these people, then the government, now it's our taxpayer dollars at risk here. Now the government has an interest to say, well, wait a minute now, maybe you shouldn't be making, as the previous caller said, $90 million, as Franklin Raines, that goes back a few years, does. Maybe you shouldn't be making these exorbitant salaries. Now the government should have some say in it. They didn't do it. The last administration didn't do it. That was an error on their part. This administration isn't doing it. They should have learned from the past errors or mistakes, but they don't. They perpetuate it. Something should have been done, but nothing in the bill addresses those issues.
All right. In L.A., Carl on the Democratic line.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like the American people to listen to this carefully, that this Republican is keeping things the way they were prior to the bailout. Since 2001, I mean, my God, nothing's changed. They haven't done anything, this Congress. This Congress has done not one thing.
Carl, are you saying that you would like to see more regulation and you're...
Of course.
Okay.
I mean, we were in the verge of bankruptcy. We're still, I mean, people are still out there suffering.
All right. Congressman, are you resistant to more regulation for Wall Street?
Normally I don't say this, hey, but Carl's wrong. Republicans are suggesting that we had problems in the past and we do need to fix them. And as the previous callers have pointed out, we're not fixing them in this legislation. We're doing absolutely zero with regard to trying to fix the GSEs. Republicans have come in a program and a proposal and legislation to say how to fix them. The Democrats in the legislation that we have today basically say all the bureaucrats, all the regulators who failed miserably, the regulators of the SEC who failed to deal with the Madoff situation, the regulators at the OCC, the regulators at the Fed, you name the regulator, they made mistakes in the past. We all admit that. We all know that. And what are the Democrats doing? They're saying, let's give them more power, let's give them more money, and let's give them even more authority without trying to fix the problem that got us here in the first place. I think that's a flawed approach to the problem.